All right, welcome everyone. We are on a slight delay here, so thank you for those who've been patient for the last 20 minutes or so on the countdown screen. We're also doing this a day early because I'll be traveling and Maxim will be away as well. So we thought today would be the better day to update on the markets and kind of just dive into some of the metrics that Santiment is showing right now, which are to give a quick summary for those on the edge of your seats, they look better. In fact, this whole drop looked way oversold. And to me, just the last 2 to 3 days since the weekend and Monday drop, it's really been just a normalization of getting back to where prices should be. And that's, of course, my opinion. And nothing I say on these calls are investment advice. You guys know that by now. But we are kind of experiencing just an over-fudded drop and then a shocked reaction to when we've rebounded back. And now we're starting to see a little bit of trickling in of FOMO again as people kind of are kicking themselves for selling the bottom. Obviously, that doesn't go for everybody, but a large portion of the crowd seemed to overreact to the drop, call for 40 to 45K. That never came. And then when we started to rise back to 55 and beyond, we're now at 57 or 58, excuse me, just in the last hour or so. It's rebounded even more since I checked. But yeah, the past week still looks like this. This is still a sea of red because, prior to this, if we went back to late July, we saw 60K and even 65K plus Bitcoin and Ethereum, teasing at 3,500. So it's funny how quickly things can change. If you've been in crypto for a while, this is nothing new. But this one was bigger than most in terms of retracing. This was the largest drop we saw since the FTX collapse, and the reactions were pretty palpable. It was a lot of doom and gloom, especially from when you think about it, all the new entries in 2024, the new people in the space, they've never really seen anything quite like this. They were only used to either up, 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 or some ranging between Bitcoin at 60K to 70K for most of the year. That's what we've seen. So the fact that we suddenly were teasing, we did in fact go into the 40Ks just briefly before rising again. A lot of people were like, well, I guess crypto's over. I've never seen anything like this, so I'm going to jump ship. And obviously now there's some people regretting it. Ethereum's back at 2,500 as well. XRP, shout out to the XRP community. They are actually in the green in the past week, which is quite rare. Only less than 5% of assets have stayed in profit over the past week through this big dip. Another one, Unis said Leo, DAI, the stablecoin. We won't count that. That's a stablecoin as well. And then Stellar has kind of shadowed what XRP has done, which reminds me of the good old days where XRP was constantly kind of following in, or I'm sorry, XLM was constantly following in XRP's footsteps. Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin kind of had their battles. And then there were even a few others with Chainlink that would kind of follow suit. But regardless, most of the markets have still retraced heavily. You can see how much, though, this big drop sparked the conversations where we're almost universally seeing higher social volumes across all assets compared to the week prior. Bitcoin seeing 21% more conversations, Ethereum 28% more conversations. That's pretty significant. Overall, the screener market cap is still showing that we're down 11.3% amongst the 3,200 plus assets that we cover on Santiment. Volume, on the other hand, is up 8.5% because naturally, when you see these kinds of drops, it's going to cause a ton of polarization, pull traders in both directions. People are either panic selling or panic buying. A lot more of the former, as is typically the case. Remember, the average trader, even though crypto's gone like this over the past decade, has lost money And that's saying a lot. It means there's a lot of buying the tops and selling the bottoms. So where we are now, well, we're back to kind of where we were on Monday before that second plummet really sunk the hearts of a lot of people. And now it's more of a guessing game, but not entirely, because we have our metrics at our disposal that we can look at. But I like the signs. We'll look at some of the whale behavior right now, the social crowd trends, the increased on-chain activity, not just for Bitcoin, but a lot of different assets out there. So there's some good things that we'll see. Not all good though. So understand that, you know, a quick straight line trajectory to 60K or 65K Bitcoin, that's not usually how things go, especially if the crowd gets too excited and they're like, oh, it's Friday, you know, time to celebrate and buy more crypto. Look how much crypto's rebounded in the past couple of days. You know, be careful of the sudden FOMO that comes right back. Okay, so that's just a recap of the markets. We're going to look at some of the on-chain stuff here, and I'm also going to go over a few custom metrics that have been more interesting as of late that we recently kind of created. Actually, before we do this, this has been one of my favorite discoveries. Shout out to the Santiment team that brought this to my attention. But I'm going to recreate this really quick. It's just a quick round number summary of how many social calls people have on the low end versus the high end of where trader expectations may be. So that's the low end. In fact, let's copy paste this for a moment. And we're going to actually make the blue the high end. I'm just adding every round number between 70 to 75K. So these are like the bullish expectations from the crowd. And then right here, that'll be the low end in red. If we put them on a shared axis, all right. So as you can see, there are clear, very clear top and bottom signals that have come in based on when the crowd speculates that we're going to see that high range of where we've seen throughout 2024, 70K to 75K, obviously referring to Bitcoin's price, by the way. You can see right here, the first one, right in the heart of that rebound that happened in May. Let's actually go back to the all-time high as well. So you can see this was the initial reaction to Bitcoin, of course, going above 70K. No surprise that people are talking about the actual price. And now they're still talking about it here. And then we hit that all-time high and quickly retrace. Then we see a rebound, and it actually does get back above 70K. So no surprise here either. And then this time around, we get to 70K, another spike after no one's really talking about it at all for the previous month. So all of a sudden we see it, and then we instantly hit a top. This time, one more round at 70K, lots of discussion and celebration about it, instant top, and we fall. And then look at this. We see our first major call, well, at least since we came back here, or even right at the 6-month mark. Look at how many people were talking about 40 to 45K back when Bitcoin was at 40, 45K, and then we blast off. But here, we're nowhere near 40 to 45K. We're at 50 to 55K range, and everyone is saying, here comes 40 or 45 or 43K, and suddenly we bounce instantly. Then after, we get another call for 70 to 75K, even though we didn't quite hit it. We got a little below it. So this was just a lot of people being excited. Big drop, and then one final mention of 40 to 45K, even though we don't get anywhere close to that, and we bounce. So this can work literally at any time in Bitcoin's history. Obviously, you need to adjust these numbers. I've found that anywhere between whatever the current price of Bitcoin is, you go 15 to 20% below that, and then you can put in those round numbers here in red, and you go 15 to 20% above whatever the current value is and put those in blue, and you'll instantly see a lot of recent top signals and bottom signals just based on pure price speculation, because this is a good reflection of how bullish or bearish the crowd is at any given time. And there isn't quite as much noise as when I do something like, buy or buying or bought, or sell, selling, sold, stuff like that. That can kind of get a lot of extra discussions about other companies. But it's pretty rare for people to be mentioning 70K to 75K in relation to other things besides Bitcoin, right? That's why it's so specific to the price. And I really like it, and I'll be using it a lot more in my analysis for you guys. So that's something I really recommend. Let me know. Here, I'll actually just drop the link for Max, and maybe he can share it in the YouTube. One moment. Okay. So yeah, feel free to use that template. Just bookmark it, and as long as you're a Sandbase Pro member or you've got a trial, which you can get through this pricing page, you can see all of the latest mentions of 40 to 45K or 70 to 75K. Feel free to edit it as you wish. I find it really useful. All right, now back to some Onchain stuff. So no surprise at all that we saw a massive volume spike. This was actually the biggest of the year on August 4th as we were bottoming out. As I said, everyone was flocking to either panic buy or panic sell. So there was a ton of volume there, and on-chain transaction volume as well. Daily active addresses has been picking up a little bit. If you see this trend line here, yeah, it's crawled up a tiny bit. It's still nowhere near where we saw, the healthy amount of activity that was happening in March, right as the all-time high was hitting and shortly after. Circulation has been looking better. Look at these big spikes we've seen right here and here. Yeah, so especially on the unique token movement side, we're seeing some growth there. Still not quite where we were in March, but a little bit more of a rebound than we saw in active addresses. In short, we'd like to see these continue to grow. Healthy activity on a network means healthy price growth. Without it, you see a lot more crazy divergences in both directions, and whales being able to really move markets by themselves without much resistance. MVRV. So after all the bloodbath, we got as low as, I'll zoom in a little bit here so we can get more specific. Okay, perfect. So we got as low as, it looks like, negative 20.7% for 30-day traders. Obviously, that's a massive opportunity zone in most cases, and this was no exception. If you bought in, especially anytime after the 30-day MVRV went below negative 15%, you would have done pretty well for yourself. Meanwhile, the long term, the 365-day returns, we talked about how almost all of the past year we've seen the long-term returns in profit for the average Bitcoin wallet. Well, it dropped down briefly on August 4th, 5th, and was even still below on the 6th. These were great times to buy. It actually dropped briefly yesterday when Bitcoin was getting back down to about 53K, and then it had one more rebound. We'll see if that's the last opportunity we see again for a while, or if we drop back again and we range for a bit. Obviously, even with all the analysis we do, nothing's a guarantee, but we'll continue to investigate here on the call and see how likely either scenario is. Funding rate's another interesting one. Let's take off that, and that. So just looking at Bitmex first, check out all of these bars from August 4th to my early morning on the 7th. This meant that there were more shorts or people betting against the price of Bitcoin on Bitmex than there were people opening longs or betting in favor of price growing. That was a good sign that we were getting close to a bottom as well. In most cases, the funding rate on major exchanges, Bitmex and Binance being the two biggest, they're constantly trying to pull back toward even. So if you see a lot of shorts, the exchange is trying to liquidate those shorts so we get back to a break-even funding rate. When those shorts get liquidated, it only acts as rocket fuel to allow prices to grow even more. And in this case, I think that's precisely what happened. And we saw tons of liquidations. Open interest fell massively after the drop happened. So clearly a lot of longs were liquidated here, and then shorts were liquidated here as traders overreacted. You can see a little bit of shorting on Binance. It's not quite as extreme. It looks a lot more extreme for Ethereum and some other altcoins because they were getting crushed a lot more than Bitcoin was. But yeah, both Binance and Bitmex had some brief dips into more shorts than longs on the funding rate end, and that made a difference in how quickly we ended up bouncing. Whales, you can see in this case, let's zoom out again. The 4th continues to be just a huge day in on-chain history. The amount of whales we saw that made transactions exceeding $1 million, 3,540 of those, which was the largest we've seen since that all-time high day or two, right around there. So massive whale movement. We can look at the actual supply distribution now and see how the number of addresses have shifted quite a bit. For starters, the 10 to 100 wallets, they've actually grown in number on this rise, or the fall and then rise, I should say. But look at the 100 to 1,000. That's a big jump, actually. They went from 13,762 on July 29th to 13,926 today. That's a 1.2% rise, which is massive. That's actually huge in a week. The 1,000 to 10,000, they've even been rising again. You can see how much they were falling way back in May here. And after a little bit of jostling around, they've climbed as well. So combining all three of these together and just isolating it, between July 27th and now, yeah, 633 more wallets from those key whale and shark tiers. From a percentage standpoint, just jump over here really quick. So on the percentage side, when looking at 10 to 10,000 BTC wallets, this has been a little misleading because of the Mt. Gox trustee moving around wallets and consolidating a lot. But it's settled down over the past month, and you can at least use this as alpha from July 8th until August 8th, where we are now. The supply held by these key sharks and whales has risen again by about 0.41%. More specifically, if we just look at the overall amount of coins held by wallets with at least 10 BTC, yeah, they're looking just fine. So I liked the look of this a lot. When prices did this, just over those 3-ish days or so, 4 days, wallets actually rose. Yeah, I mean, the 10 plus BTC wallets rose in the amount of BTC they held. And they went up massively, 3,332 more Bitcoin accumulated while the prices were dropping. Even now, you know, as prices are recovering, those wallets are just accumulating more. So this is a very solid sign to me that the sharks and whales were not shaken whatsoever. If we compare this to some other points in history, let me take off the locked axis so it doesn't go off the screen there. So this was an example where the drop seemed a bit more justified. In mid-April, we go from, in the span of about 10 days, these whales actually dropped about 5,400 BTC. Over most points in history, the 10 plus BTC wallets are just getting richer and richer. So when you see them flatten out or actually go down a little bit, like we saw back here in August and September, right before the bull run just took off, that's where we actually saw justified reason for Bitcoin's price to move down. But in most cases, as long as we're moving up here with the sharks and whales, it's a pretty good sign that Bitcoin is not going to suffer too much. This is even 16 years into Bitcoin's existence. This is still very much a shark and whale playground where they choose when to make prices soar or make prices plummet. And unless you're one of them, you're going to kind of be at their mercy a little bit. Supply and exchanges, they're continuing to drop down, which is a great sign as well. We did see this as a warning sign. From July 22nd to 24th, we saw a lot of BTC coming right back onto exchanges, and that was right when we topped out and ended up dropping. So now that it's moving back down, we're not seeing any crazy amounts of coins moving to exchanges that would indicate there's a higher probability of a sell-off. It could still happen. There's some whales out there who aren't really doing anything with their supply and exchanges, who might just decide one day, I'm going to sell off half my supply. So nothing is a perfect prediction, but we can say that there aren't any serious warning signs with all things equal. USD coin, wild swings here. We saw a big plummet in supply moving off of exchanges and then coming right back on. This was clearly a sign that people wanted to buy that dip, and they moved a lot of stable coins to exchanges to get more, not just Bitcoin, but any kind of crypto that isn't a stable coin. Tether's been more neutral, just kind of doing its thing. And as long as buying power is staying high on exchanges, there's plenty of dry powder available to keep prices moving up. Social dominance, we can skip that. Funding rate, we talked about that. Number of holders. This is basically a reflection of the amount of wallets with more than 0 coins in them, so non-empty wallets. And what we've seen is a drop here from mid-June all the way up until right around July 21st. Then people started to get a little bit cocky, and we see a lot of new wallets being created. And then the plummet happens, and everyone kind of freezes, and the amount of non-empty wallets actually has gone down just slightly. That's a great sign. We want to see the total network's amount of wallets consolidate, where this is mostly controlled by the micro wallets, because that's what most of any assets network is very tiny wallets with anywhere from a few cents to a few dollars in them. And because they're moving down, that means more of the supply is going into the hands of the sharks and whales, who are pumping coins again, or pumping prices again for the coin. So we might start to see this trickle up in the next week if Bitcoin recovers to 60K or even 65K. But the crowd is going to dictate a lot here over the next week, and really the rest of August in particular. This is a very speculative driven summer compared to a lot of months we've seen where it's more based on ETFs or on-chain activity. Percent of total supply, we also saw it drop all the way down to below 75%. That was the first time we've seen that of 2024. We'd have to go back to October when we last saw the percent of supply and profit that low. Regardless, it has rebounded a little bit. I still like the fact that it's below 80%. Obviously, that's kind of an arbitrary round number, but you can see here the last few times it dipped below 80%. We get a bounce there, we get a bounce there, and obviously so far we're on a bounce here. It gets more unpredictable once it goes above 80%, though, which we are not at just yet. All right, this is a combined metric that I made. If you want to see how I made it, check out the video that is being uploaded to YouTube as we speak. It'll be up on the Santiment Network YouTube within the next 30-ish minutes or so. So the way this one works, it's very similar to weighted sentiment, which is a default metric on Santiment. But what I like about this is you're taking the total positive sentiment comments, total negative sentiment comments, dividing them, and then multiplying by social dominance instead of just social volume. And what this does is it allows you to get an equal playing field for different assets, and it isn't so dependent on like just how much people are talking about crypto during a certain season or month. It stays much more flat over time, so you can compare against each other. In short, you don't want to see these. This is a sign of a lot of greed. Let me get on regular price instead of price BTC, because that's always going to show up as just a 1 when we're looking at BTC. Okay, so you don't want to see this. This means there's a huge ratio of positive commentary versus negative commentary, and there's a lot of social dominance because of the price rises, obviously. So in this case, this was your warning sign that you would have seen on July 27th. We top out on July 28th, and we begin to plummet on July 29th. Just like here, where we saw back on May 21st, we see a very minor rebound after going back above 71K. Everyone says it's time to buy the dip. Everyone buy, positive comments. Bitcoin's going to 100K. And then we instead see a bunch of dropping. Completely normal. The prices typically go the opposite direction of the crowd's expectation. In this case, July 4th, we see the opposite happen. All sorts of negative comments. This is where a lot of people are talking about 40 to 45K as their target. I still love Bitcoin, but this isn't the time. Let's wait a little longer. Usually when we start to see those narratives, prices bounce pretty quickly. In this case, we see more negative comments than positive comments, and prices blast off. And we don't see that happen again until August 4th, Sunday. And right here, when we see more negative comments than positive comments, we immediately start to bounce again. And now we're kind of in maybe slight positive range. I'm just going to eyeball this based on, the last 3 months. And I'll say that right here is around the positive versus negative break-even point, maybe even right there. So whenever we go above that, it gets a bit more uncertain in terms of the crowd. But I think that it's more so just a case of extremes. Like unless we're seeing, anything above here or below, maybe right there, where this is kind of the uncertain range. This is like a very high likelihood of a bounce, and this is a very high likelihood of a retrace when people get greedy. So you can look at the chart and see in most cases, prices tend to retrace when above and bounce when we're below. If you guys want to use this chart, I'll drop this with Max as well, right there. Feel free to share that with everyone, Max. So yeah, you can make all sorts of stuff. Like if I wanted to go to Ethereum and say, give me the combined network growth, hit combine here. So we're going to go combine network growth with active addresses. And I'm just going to say, all right, let's sum them together. Network growth is X1, daily active addresses is X2. We'll just call it net growth plus active addresses. Hit combine. We'll just put it there, get rid of these. And now we have a custom metric that we just made that shows the combined network growth and active addresses. And maybe there's some price alpha here, maybe not. Maybe it's more just for analytical purposes than anything else. But you can have a lot of fun with all the existing metrics that are on Santiment, where a lot of them really have correlation with one another and make a lot of sense to calculate together. And suddenly you have a new metric. And we'd love to find out what you come up with and start using it as part of our regular analysis, if it makes sense. So that's a little bit about combined metrics. Let's look at the social stuff really quick here. And we'll probably end in about 15-ish minutes, maybe 10 minutes. XRP, of course, has been the story, and they're still the number one and number two most trending topics in crypto right now. Market insights. I'm not sure if this was like a hashtag that had to do with, Binance or something, which it often is, but it looks like there are a lot of people more interested in price summaries and market data, basically exactly what I'm doing right now for you guys. Thursday guessing, price prediction contest. So this seems to be similar to what we see with SanR, which, by the way, you can use at any time to make your own price predictions. Just go to sanr.app. Maybe Max, you could share that link too, since we're on a link sharing spree today. But yeah, Thursday guessing. This is kind of a reflection of the growing interest in SocialFi and the more transparent nature of people's predictions about prices, where they can actually show what they're predicting rather than just talking about it on social media. A little bit about Judge SEC lawsuit related to Ripple Labs and the SEC. A New York federal judge ordered Ripple to pay $125 million in civil penalties, concluding the lawsuit and determining that XRP is not classified as a security. The ruling led to a 26% increase in XRP's value, capturing the attention of crypto. So this is a case where, even though there was a ruling against Ripple, the price outcome was positive and helped the asset surge. And also check out Solana here at the very bottom. Mentions of Solana reaching new highs against Ethereum and predictions for its future price movements. Solana is always being mentioned alongside Ethereum as a network that could potentially surpass it one day. I won't go into my opinion or Santiment's opinions about it, but I still think that with competition comes growth, just like capitalism in general. Not to go off on a tangent, but the more networks are really competing with one another, the more they really kind of get a kick in the butt to grow and innovate and improve, so that they aren't falling behind their direct competitors. So I'm all for network communities kind of bumping heads and saying we're better than you, you're better than us, all of that stuff. It's only going to be good for crypto's overall growth, unless it gets too toxic. Of course, we don't want to go overboard with that narrative. Historical crypto trends, just to take a quick look at some of the more mid and long-term trends that are happening. Real world assets saw a bit of a climb, but has dropped here in August. SocialFi, as I mentioned, it's just getting more and more traction. So people are very, very interested in the idea of sharing their price predictions with one another, which, by the way, is exactly what sanr.app is for. So for everyone watching, I really highly recommend you check that out if you've never been. It's a really cool platform where we give away free crypto for correct price predictions, or even the most incorrect price predictions. You can have it both ways. Everything else, it kind of looks like it's been flat, nothing too special. A little bit of a rise in the words bull market, which is interesting, because obviously over the past week, we've really dropped off. But that could be a little bit of like sarcasm put into the mix, or just people genuinely asking when we're going to get back to the bull market. As far as trending coins go, just a brief rundown. XRP, as I mentioned, clearly in the number one spot. Ton has jumped back up, so it's back in the news. Still one of the best performers of 2024. Nero, Solana, Ethereum, AMP, SWI, Tether, USDE, which is a stablecoin with the Solana blockchain, and then XLM/Stellar rounding out the top 10. Okay, as far as questions go, maybe you can queue one or two up for me really quick, Max. All good. I'll look at maybe XRP, maybe something like Chainlink in just a sec. I also wanted to mention BTC price is still making up a large chunk of the alpha narratives here. Everything else has kind of dropped as a result. ETH ninth birthday. That's interesting. Yeah, no other crazy alpha narratives are popping out right now. Meme coins a little bit. The CPI was a pretty big discussion last week. A lot of people think that the interest rates not being changed, meaning no rate cuts, that might have been a one of the main culprits to cause crypto to fall and hit that top that it did. But regardless, we are where we are now. Bitcoin is on the rise once again, so we're happy about that, even though it's been a bloodbath of a week overall. And we'll take a quick look at one asset here. I think XRP, considering it's the top trending asset right now, regardless of your opinion of it, it's causing a ton of polarization, as it often does when it gets in the news, kind of similar to Solana. And we'll look at a few quick on-chain and social metrics related to it, and then call it a day here. So trading volume, let's zoom in. It's a little bit too tiny. Trading volume is huge at the moment. This is the largest spike in trading volume we've seen going back to this one spike on March 9th, March 10th, right when it topped out. And other than that, this is the second highest one of the last year, potentially even the last couple of years. Yeah, third largest of the past 2 years, second largest of the past year. So clearly XRP is just seeing a ton of trading right now as people try to take advantage of the volatility. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of shorts because of the lawsuit causing uncertainty, especially when negative news causes a rise. It can really bring out very head-scratching opinions and actions from the community. Active addresses, circulation, really nothing special there, so I won't take up any time with that. As far as MVRV goes, this one's important. So we dipped into negative range, both on the short and long-term MVRVs here. This was a good buy signal. Obviously, this big rebound was due to news, though, that was independent from the MVRVs. And now we're back in the positives. It got all the way above, 30-day got about to plus 11%, and the long-term range about the same. So they're both still very high at the moment, which is a concern. We aren't nearly where we were at the end of July, but yeah, there's the average wallet in XRP is now in profit again. So that could limit the further upside that XRP sees. Funding rate wise, back to neutral, actually. I expected there might be some more leaning in one direction. Bitmex is neutral, I should say. Binance is actually negative here. So there, yeah, as I thought, there's a little bit of shorting, but not too much. That can help propel XRP to get a little bit higher until those shorts go away. Whale transactions have been through the roof. If we get a little more precise, we'll go to 12 hours for both. Yeah, so whale transactions on this rise, you can clearly see how much they propelled prices to go up after that lawsuit news came out. If we look at the sharks and whales here, so let's look at the number of addresses first. Price is at 61 cents, so sharks will begin around here, and we'll call whales about right there. So these three tiers are going to be key. As far as XRP's price, it doesn't look like there was any special growth in the amounts of shark and whale addresses. If we look at the percentage of supply, yeah, it doesn't really look any different especially 1 million to 10 million, they were dropping a lot here. So yeah, there was some minor growth a little bit with the 100K to 1 million, but it was mostly just the same wallets doing very mild accumulation and making a lot of big transactions as a reaction to the news that came out. I wouldn't necessarily be so sure, though, that this was a ton of accumulation. So I might stand corrected based on the tiers kind of staying pretty silent right here. They didn't go down either. So it could have just been a shuffling of the chips a little bit, if you will. Checking to see if there's anything else. Mean dollar invested age is looking pretty good. You can see how it's kind of dipped here. The amount of the average days in which the average coins have been in XRP wallets has been going down over the past week, especially right here, even as the price fell along with the rest of crypto. XRP was no exception. It's flattened out here as well, just in the last couple of days. So that's a good sign that we are seeing a healthy amount of dormant movement that can help bring older coins back into XRP circulation and keep the network healthy and circulating many coins. Supply exchanges just continue to move down. I'm a little concerned about how linear that looks, so I'm uncertain about the accuracy. But this is the big story. Social volume just through the roof on the news of this lawsuit. Social dominance up to 5% of all discussions in crypto are about XRP right now. That's massive and one of the largest days in history for it. It is the biggest day of social volume in the past year. And the only other day that was bigger was this one back in mid-July of 2023. And I believe that was related to good news about like XRP being deemed non-security, and prices went nuts from there and then retraced. So just note that there have been many price-driven events over the last couple of years about XRP related to lawsuits and the SEC. And often we'll see a positive price reaction followed by a bit of a drop. I wouldn't necessarily say that history is going to repeat itself, especially with metrics looking okay. But there are some warning signs, especially with the MVRV being a bit overheated, that XRP may be an underperformer compared to the rest of the markets over the next week. So that's kind of what the metrics are showing. Also note the positive sentiment that the crowd has as well. Total amount of holders also growing. Yeah, so maybe like slightly bearish on the XRP side of things, just based on where we are now after the huge surge. That's very common after you see prices skyrocket over the rest of the markets, the way XRP just did. Okay, so we've covered just about everything I wanted to cover today. I hope you guys found this interesting. Leave comments if you want us to look more into things next week, especially certain metrics you're interested in. If you're watching this on replay, which the majority of you are, let us know what you'd like to see for next week. And as the markets progress, depending on how long it's been since this live stream happened, maybe things have changed drastically. Let us know what we got right or wrong, and we should. I'm not positive because the company is going to be actually on a little retreat, but we may do something for our This Week in Crypto next week. We'll keep you posted. But in the meantime, stay safe, happy trading, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, guys.